What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday Night Football Pre-Lock Show here on RotoGrinders. Happy to have you with us, whether you're watching live on our videos feed or on our YouTube channel. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you like what you see. We've got plenty of NFL content throughout the week for you here at RotoGrinders, and now we are ready for Sunday Night Football. Look, it was a weird day in the NFL streets, lots of injuries, lots of issues. Lots of things that just can probably make you tilt over the course of an NFL slate. So maybe we're looking to wipe the slate clean here with a Sunday night game, which really isn't the most exciting game you'll ever see, but it's football, and it's the 49ers and the Broncos. I am Justin Van Zuiden, a.k.a. STL Cardinals 84. I've got TJ Zwarych alongside me. TJ, what's going on tonight?
Ready to dive into this slate a little bit. It's I don't know how fun it's going to be to watch, but it's kind of fun for DFS. Was close to a very profitable day in NFL. Just ended up having a small profit, but anytime we're not losing money, we'll take it on to the next slate, and ready to talk about this one.
Yeah, and the first thing that kind of popped into my head, when I was looking at this game, is that it surprises me to see San Francisco favored. Like, you look, they're going back to Garoppolo, who obviously they didn't want to be their starter. And you've got Russell Wilson, the big splash signing in Denver. And they're at home, tough place to play, especially in a primetime game. You would have expected Denver to be favored in this game, but the Broncos have not looked very good offensively through the first 2 weeks. They lost to Seattle. They struggled against Houston last week. So I think, both teams might play it close to the vest to start out a little bit, play that field position game. But just in my opinion, it surprises me to see San Francisco favored in this game.
Yeah, on the surface, I agree with you, but it also just like Denver's looked so bad through 2 games, and it is a small sample size, so this could be a spot that they fool all of us and end up winning. Like, if I were to place a bet on this game, it would definitely be on Denver, but from a DFS side of things, I definitely find myself gravitating more to the 49ers side.
Yeah, and the way it plays out for DFS, and we can kind of get through it here on the show, it just makes it builds are a little bit more difficult to come by with a game like this one. You don't have, 6 known commodities on each side that are going to be getting the ball. It's a little bit of a guessing game as to where these teams are going to go. And we'll kind of go through the positions, but let's start with captain usage here. And we can talk a little FanDuel as well. I usually like to a little bit more strategy with 6 guys on your roster on DraftKings plus the salary multiplier for the captain spot, which you do not have for the MVP slot on FanDuel. So we'll work some FanDuel analysis in as well. We can take some questions from the YouTube chat. But let's start out with the captain usage here. And we were talking before the show, it doesn't seem like a whole lot of people want to play Garoppolo in the captain. Usually we always talk about the quarterbacks, but now we've actually got 2 guys projected ahead of Russell Wilson as well, with Samuel and Williams. So, and we've got ownership fairly spread out from what you will normally see. So who are you liking for the captains to be overweight on tonight?
So on DraftKings, I think I have a bit of a different strategy than I do on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I think I want to get underweight on Deebo Samuel in the captain. Even though I really like the spot he's in today, I think he's going to get a lot of backfield work. Where we're looking at a lot of where we're looking for points per reception type things, and he's getting a little overowned. I think I'd rather pivot to one of these other 49ers pass catchers or Garoppolo in the captain spot where he's nice and cheap. What I like about having Garoppolo there is there's lots of options to put in for a stack, but even somebody like if I'm talking about tournaments, even somebody like a Brandon Ayuk or a George Kittle in the captain spot is very interesting to me today.
Yeah, I think you can go a number of different ways here. I'm not enamored with the Denver running backs. I just think they're both a little too expensive, and the fact that they're going to split work, you just never know where it's going to go. Certainly Williams is the more talented guy, but we've seen time and time again, we've seen Gordon still get the carries and sometimes get the goal line work. You just don't know. So Samuel, just with his all around ability and his ability to break the game, like it makes me nervous to go underweight on him here. So I will have my shares of Samuel. Obviously, both quarterbacks I think are fine, but I don't mind going a little crazy with your captain selection here. If it's a lower scoring game, that means fewer points. That means every touchdown, every big play is a little bit more valuable. So if you want to go with one of the Denver receivers, even if you want to go with George Kittle in the captain, I think that makes sense. And just hope that that's where the big play comes from the passing game. So don't be afraid to spread it out a little bit with your captains and be a little different in GPP builds. Anything else as far as captain usage for you?
Yeah, for GPPs, kind of on that note, I don't even think it's crazy to run a Judy or Cortland Sutton in the captain position and then just load up your lineup with San Francisco 49ers outside of that. Kind of think the 49ers win this game, and if Denver's behind and the usage goes to one of the two receivers, I don't mind that strategy. And then even running one of the two kickers or the San Francisco defense in the captain spot in tournaments, if you're running a lot of lineups, I don't think is super crazy.
All right, let's go ahead and start talking about the various positions here for our flex plays. We got plenty of time with 28 minutes left until lock. So let's talk about the two quarterbacks. Is this the game where the Broncos kind of let Russ do his thing a little bit and maybe let him have a little bit more freedom offensively? What do we make of Garoppolo? We've got both these guys under 50% owned in the flex, which is rare for the quarterbacks. So what are your thoughts on those guys and, whether you need to play them both?
So on DraftKings, where Russ is a little bit more expensive than Jimmy, I like going to Jimmy a little bit more because I do think San Fran wins this game. And I like their pass catchers a little bit more. And Jimmy's just easier to fit in. And so if the Broncos are going to pick it up, I think they have to give Russ the reins a little bit. But at the same time, like, he hasn't looked that good when he's got the chance to get the reins. You know what I mean? Like, he's been the worst he's ever been for holding the ball, and he's kind of always been bad for that. And so the offenses look terrible. He himself has looked bad. I want to trust the long-term sample size with Russell Wilson and just be like, he's going to bounce back. And if a showdown slate with him picking up not that much ownership, it should be the time in theory to bounce back on. But I honestly would rather go with Jimmy Garoppolo over Russell Wilson if I'm picking only one.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a 2-game sample. Like, we've got a long-term sample on Garoppolo, and obviously he's not the guy that the 49ers wanted to have back there. So I don't know. It's really tough, but I think with both guys having lower ownership than what you usually see, and again, I don't love the running backs, particularly on the Denver side, for their prices and their ownership. So I'll probably go overweight a little bit on both QBs here, I think, tonight. All right, let's talk this running game, and maybe you can sell me on something here. But like, Williams is 10K on DraftKings. Gordon, he's not as expensive, but certainly less explosive. Jeff Wilson, is he going to get all the work if you got Jordan Mason and Marlon Mack? And I have to look at the inactives here to see if one of those guys is inactive. I think we would have removed the projection if they were. Ty Davis Price is inactive, but both Mack and Jordan Mason are active. So that gives them, two guys behind Jeff Wilson that could potentially get some carries in a relatively low scoring game. Like, I don't know. I don't like these running backs. So you tell me if I'm mistaken here.
I don't really like them either. I don't hate the strategy of playing Jeff Wilson in a lineup and fading Deebo Samuel. I think that's interesting just based on we've seen in the past, Brandon Ayuk is a favorite of Jimmy Garoppolo. And so if that continues and he gets more of the receiving targets and Deebo Samuel doesn't get any backfield work, and when they march down the field, Jeff Wilson punches it in, I think that's kind of an interesting strategy. But having said that, I would rather go with Deebo Samuel, and I like him more. And in terms of this Broncos side, I don't like either of them. My preference is to full fade that Denver's running game. If I was going to play one, it would probably be Javonte Williams, but I think Melvin Gordon is more viable on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, Williams is certainly the explosive, the talented guy, but until they start giving him a healthier percentage of the carries to where it becomes like a 70-30 backfield, I just don't want to pay $10K for him. And I know salary is less of a thing on Showdown, and you can probably make it fit, but like his rushing yard prop is 49.5. Like, I don't know. And that's leading me towards more exposure to the passing game. And I think Wilson is fine, but just nobody that I want to take a big stand on with these running backs. So let's talk
the one I'd
the
be
pass.
most likely to play out of this group, to be honest, on DraftKings. I wouldn't touch him on FanDuel, but on DraftKings is Kyle Juszczyk.
Yeah. I mean, they use him in the red zone, and he can catch balls. I mean, he's just kind of he's a different type of athlete in today's NFL, but he's a pretty good fullback / hybrid guy. I think he's definitely in play if you're multi-entering for sure.
Yeah, FanDuel, I don't think you need to mess with him, and unless you're playing a whole lot of lineups, but on DraftKings, that 1.4K can kind of go a long way.
Yeah. Will help you navigate the salary cap for sure. All right, let's talk the pass catchers. We'll start with the wideouts. And San Francisco, I mean, obviously we have Samuel. You mentioned Ayuk kind of being a favorite of Garoppolo. Jawan Jennings is probably going to run as the wide receiver 3. Your thoughts on the 49ers pass catchers?
I kind of like all of them, from George Kittle at the tight end position through to all three of these receivers. Now, I'm only running one lineup on FanDuel, and that's all I'm playing today. So I'm not getting a ton of exposure to somebody like Jawan Jennings, but I do like him quite a bit, especially on DraftKings at 4.6K. Judy and Sutton, I'm good with both of them, but because I'm getting more Garoppolo exposure than I am to Russell Wilson, I find myself landing on one of Judy or Sutton as opposed to both Judy and Sutton. And so I don't mind at all playing Debo, Brandon Ayuk, and either Jennings or George Kittle together with Jimmy Garoppolo and kind of running that full stack.
Yeah, so I mean, you can make a lineup there with, say, 3 pass catchers, 2 from the one team where maybe you're playing the quarterback, and then maybe 1 run back from the other team. Do you have a preference between Sutton and Judy on the Denver side?
Sutton is my preference if you can get there. However, Judy is quite a bit easier to get to. He's 1.5K cheaper on FanDuel, which does quite a bit. So on DraftKings, I think Cortland Sutton would be my guy because I think he's going to get more targets. I think he's going to get more receptions. But on FanDuel, I think Judy's kind of the more likely one to break a 50-yard touchdown, and his price is a little easier to get to. So DraftKings at Sutton, FanDuel it's Judy.
All right, fair enough. I think I will tend to prioritize Sutton a little bit more. But again, if that $1,200 price difference is an issue for you finalizing your lineup, I'm okay going down to Judy as well. Any interest in like Hamler or Hinton, or just passing on the 3rd and 4th receivers for Denver?
No, this offense has looked bad enough that if I'm targeting anyone, it's going to be one of the better players. Somebody like Cortland Sutton, who I'm probably thinking gets double-digit targets.
All right, so we've got both tight ends at relatively low ownership. If you've been playing Showdown for any length of time, you know that the tight ends have been going off in these Sunday night Showdown games. It was kind of a thing last year. It seemed like both tight ends would score every week. And we've got pretty modest ownership. I mean, 28% on Kittle's not too bad. Alberto was like the punt play du jour in the main slates last week and did nothing. So he's not getting a ton of ownership here at 5,200. And again, Kittle at 7,400, like he's cheaper than the primary wide receivers. And this is a guy that can put up big numbers. So I kind of like both tight ends a little bit here tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. George Kittle, I like quite a bit. He's one of my favorite plays on the slate. Alberto, I don't mind either. And I really honestly think as well, you can take shots on these random backup tight ends for Denver. I would rather take a shot on somebody like I don't even know how to say his last name, but Eric Saubert or Andrew Beck as opposed to Ross Dwelly, because with George Kittle back, I don't really think Dwelly's going to be getting too many looks, but I don't hate the idea of Eric or Andrew, these two guys here, just because Denver's going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets, especially if they get close to the goal line, if they run some play action. I think one of these guys could get something. It was Eric Tomlinson, who, if he had his toe in bounds, the last time these guys were in a primetime game, I would have won the Millie Maker on FanDuel. So playing these random backup tight ends, I think, is a very good way to differentiate your lineup, because you can get guys that have a chance to get red zone touches at literally 1% ownership.
Yeah, DraftKings proactively priced up Dwelly a little bit in the event that Kittle wasn't able to play. So Dwelly you just simply can't really play him at that salary. If he falls into the end zone, I mean, you just take your L. But it would simply be a game theory only decision if you decide you want to play Dwelly, and you hope he, snags a touchdown at some point. But defenses, any interest in the defenses here?
Yeah, 49ers would be my preference out of the 2. I just think that if Jimmy G is somewhat off, he's always been somebody that's typically good at limiting turnovers. And if he's somewhat off, they're probably really going to lean on this running game. So I don't love going with the Broncos defense, but I do quite like going with the 49ers defense. I definitely think they're a somewhat interesting tournament play.
All right. We've got sub 20% ownership on both of them. I think both are fine to mix and match, especially if you like the running backs. Like, I don't like the running backs as much. So if you want to play for the, it's going to be a 10-6 game, feel free to roll a defense out there with a running back and just hope the game, maybe throw a kicker in there as well and hope we get a real ugly game and, maybe a defensive touchdown. But how about the kickers? What are we doing there?
I honestly kind of like both of them. My preference is Brandon McManus because I like so many of these offensive players for San Fran. So if they end up settling for field goals, that's just going to suck for me. But Denver has a lot of playmakers, and their offense struggles as soon as they try and get to the red zone. And so that's led to a lot of field goal attempts for Brandon McManus so far. He's a good kicker. It's in Mile High, and he has a big leg, and obviously the ball flies over there. So I like Brandon McManus, and I don't mind him running him as my only my only Denver player in if I'm stacking the 49ers.
All right, so that's a kind of a general walkthrough of the positions. It's a bit of an ugly game. It just is, and we shouldn't expect a ton of points. And a shootout can break out at any time, but based on the way that Denver offense has looked through the first couple of weeks, it's tough to envision a massive scoring outburst for sure. All righty.
Before we get to QQs or anything like that, I want to just kind of go over a general FanDuel overview quick, since we focus mostly on DK. If projected ownership is panning out this way, if at the MVP position, Russell Wilson and Deebo Samuel are going to be the only ones over 20% at that position, the next highest owned being Javonte Williams, and Jimmy Garoppolo is really going to be sub 10%. And it's not just us having him at there. We got the RG projections have him at sub 10. The Blitz projections have him at sub 10. Other places across the industry have him at sub 10 in that MVP position. And so based on that, he is by far the best GPP MVP play. But I kind of just feel like that's going to be how everyone's thinking, and it's based on projection. That is the reason why he's so low owned in that spot, and he's going to come in higher than that, just because I can't imagine a quarterback coming in at sub 10% ownership in the MVP position. But if that's the case, he's a fantastic play there. I like that as the pivot off of the chalk at the Deebo Samuel spot there. And if you're not going with Samuel or Russell Wilson or Jimmy Garoppolo in that spot, I kind of just like looking towards someone that you think can put up a ton of points or score a large touchdown. So I wouldn't get super sneaky with somebody in this position here, like a kicker on FanDuel, where you don't have to worry about saving the salary. I would just rather play somebody like Jerry Jeudy or Sutton and then load up on 49ers, or play somebody like Brandon Ayuk at the MVP position and fade Deebo Samuel, something like that. People that I think could put up a touchdown in 100 plus yards, or just go with Jimmy Garoppolo.
All right. Yeah, the FanDuel cap for some of the showdown slates this year has been a little bit difficult to navigate, but tonight it's not. You can get like 3 of your top end plays and feel pretty good about it. So one thing I do kind of want to show, because we've got a little extra time, is this new tool that we built at Scores and Odds. So we got you covered at scoresandodds.com, the number one place for all things sports betting. You can arm yourself with the best tools and analysis. Check out our new Parley IQ tool, which is free for everyone currently. You can use it to build some optimal same-game parlays based on thousands of games worth of simulated data. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to share my screen. And it's here, I believe. We'll see if Steve can get that up. So, and I might need to make it just slightly bigger. Let's see if that's... I think that looks good. Now, and this tool is a little overwhelming at first, and some of you might not be in legal sports betting states, so apologies if you're not. But if you are, this is really cool. So this basically tells you, based on all the simulations right now, this is what our data at Scores and Odds thinks are the picks that are most likely to cover. So the best bang for your buck, just with an individual bet on the game, you wouldn't even necessarily have to use this to make a parlay, but the best individual pick on the game is over 19.5 receiving yards for Javonte Williams, based on our projections. If you don't agree with that, then don't pick that one. But if you are just trusting the projections, then you can go with that one. Our projections like the San Francisco money line. So, and over 31.5 rushing yards for Deebo Samuel, under 58.5 rushing yards for Jeff Wilson. So just pick the one that you think is the best pick from your, personal point of view. So if I take San Francisco money line here, it's going to do the work, and it's going to add that into my bet slip. Now, the simulations then change to give you the most likely outcomes to go along with that San Francisco money line to add to your same game parlay. Now, if you put San Francisco minus 1.5 in there as well, it's not going to add anything hardly to your odds, because they're obviously correlated the same, unless San Francisco only happens to win by 1. So I'm going to skip that one. But you could do over on the San Francisco team total. And you could do Deebo Samuel to score a touchdown. Obviously that's highly positively correlated. And it's just going to do a same game parlay bet slip for you. Hang on just a second.
No worries. While you get your cough in quick, I want to say, make sure I get this in before I forget. I did say prior I wouldn't mess with Kyle Juszczyk on FanDuel at all. I take that back. I definitely think he's more viable and is a better play on DraftKings, but I did just build a more contrarian FanDuel lineup where he was the only one left that kind of fit in perfectly. So I did end up playing him in one smaller lineup.
There you go. All right. So, and then, maybe, okay, Denver's playing from behind, so I do like that Javonte Williams receiving yards. And so this will tell you, basically, here's your 4 bet same game parlay. And it's saying that you should get plus 400 on that to make it a good bet. Anything plus 400 or better, you'd be making a plus EV bet. And you can place this directly on FanDuel by clicking that button. However, the FanDuel same game parlays are messed up at the moment. They got all the picks off the board, so I'm not sure what happened on FanDuel. So I can't actually show you that. But trust me that when the same game parlays are working, you click that button, you log into FanDuel, and it brings all those selections into your bet slip. But the important factor is the simulations adjust based on the picks that you have already made in your bet slip. So obviously, if I try to go for something with a lower percentage, like let's see, Jerry Jeudy to score a touchdown, right? That's lower percentage because it's not correlated with the fact that I have San Francisco winning the game. So the Denver props are going to be a little bit lower. Alberto to score a touchdown is only 20% correlated. So it's just really interesting the way it adapts. And this is a brand new tool, and we have it for every game. You know, we'll have it for the Monday night game as well, over there at Scores and Odds. And again, right now it's free, so you can mess around with it. Just check it out at the we've got it on our Twitter page. If you search for Parley IQ, you can find it there. We've got links on the RotoGrinders site all over the place. So check it out. It's really, really interesting for those of you that are in the same game parlays. And we had a few extra minutes here tonight with this game being kind of a dud. So I just wanted to show that off a little bit. So I will close this now. And Steve, you can resume the screen share if you like with the lineup HQ. But all right, let's take a look. You have been handling the questions kind of in the chat as we go. As far as Noah had just posted Kittle, Debo, Ayuk. Which one do I not play? Why don't you talk about your logic behind that one a little bit?
So yeah, it's you in tournaments. Leaving off Debo Samuel is probably going to be the most contrarian option. Having said that, Debo Samuel is also the one that projects the best. So it kind of depends what your contest is, what your goals are. If you're playing cash, if you're playing optimally, I wouldn't want to leave off Debo Samuel. But if you're trying to win $1 million and get different and you're okay with losing some money, then yeah, go without Debo and hope that you hit big. For me, it kind of depends on the rest of my lineup. If I'm playing Jeff Wilson in my lineup, I'm a lot more comfortable leaving off Debo Samuel because probably only one of them is going to do well. If I'm thinking this is going to be a real low-scoring game, then maybe Ayuk is the one I'm going to leave off of because George Kittle and Debo Samuel are going to get a bunch of short yardage work. So it kind of depends how you think it's going to go. In a vacuum, it's not really that simple. It depends what your goals are, what your contest structure is, and then also how the rest of your lineup looks.
And if we're talking contrarian builds like in tournaments, like do you see a scenario where both Denver running backs get there? Like could you play both Denver running backs in the same lineup?
I wrote in the expert survey today that would be a rule I'd put in lineup HQ not to do. If I was running 150, I think probably what I'd do is build that rule. No double Denver lineups, maximum one. And then specifically after the one I've built my 150, look at the teams in that project the worst, that I really don't like, that don't mesh well together, and build a game script lineup that has both Denver running backs with maybe Debo Samuel, Jimmy Garoppolo, or Brandon Ayuk as the MVP. Probably Debo Samuel because I feel like, or maybe just one 49er player, but Debo would be my favorite to do this with. And then you run both Denver running backs, Brandon McManus and Denver defense, something like that. That just like makes sense for a specific game script. But other than that, I wouldn't be wanting to have both of them in my lineup. Oh, you're muted.
Mike did the old mutant thing. You got me back.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it does that once. It's every 15 minutes. It only does it once an hour, but it either does it right on the hour or
now it has you cutting out halfway through, so you may have to do a mute again and reset. But I think that's kind of the play for if you want to play both running backs. And it's the same thing if you want to run Deebo Samuel and Jeff Wilson in the same lineup. Like, if I'm doing that, I don't think I'm playing Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's the specific quarterback I'm looking to leave out of the lineup if I'm running both Jeff Wilson Jr. and Deebo Samuel in the same lineup. Because, yes, Deebo Samuel is a receiver, but I'm kind of thinking of him as a secondary running back for the 49ers today.
Robo might go away. Do I sound okay again?
Nope.
Interesting.
Oh, now you're back.
All right. It's good now?
It went extra wonky, and then it switched you back to normal.
I'm not sure what happened. So this always happens where like once an hour, either on the hour or 15 past or 30 past or 45 past, my microphone will automatically mute. And then when I unmute, usually it's fine. But a couple times over the last week, it's gone robo mic when that has happened. And sometimes it just takes a minute to figure itself out. So I'm back and I sound non-robo.
Yeah, you're back to normal cards, and it's no worries here. We started the Crunch Time show this morning with me not even knowing I was hosting, and so I was just fully going chaos mode and riffing all show when I didn't know I was going to be having to. So that's kind of the chaos is where I thrive. So if something happens and you got to go, then I'll just rant about something for a while.
Well, be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe to the channel for sure. We've got about 3 minutes left here until lock. Alan S. had asked in the YouTube chat, would you go double kicker or punt with the Denver tight end? Which I assume he can get up to Albert O if he's talking double kicker.
Yeah, and so that was a follow-up question to him asking who is his favorite, who would be our favorite below 4,200 punt on DraftKings, and I said Brandon McManus. And he said he already had him in the lineup, so would you go Alberto or would you go Robbie Gould? And for me, that kind of depends on the rest of my lineup. If Russell Wilson is in it, I would go with Alberto. If Russell Wilson is not in the lineup, I would go with Robbie Gould.
Fair enough. Look, you can just go a couple running backs, play both kickers, play both defenses, and hope it's like 9-6, maybe 16-6 with a defensive touchdown. You know, all that stuff. That'd be the glorious game. If you fade the quarterbacks and stack up the running backs, the kickers, and the defenses. And I wouldn't put it out of the ordinary for a game like this one with a 44-point total. Jacob had asked, would you go double defense? I mean, I can't remember the last time I've played two defenses in the same game, though. I just joked about it. Like, I don't know. Double defense is pretty hard to be optimal.
Likely not, because if a defense is going to be optimal, it usually means somebody got a pick six or maybe even two defensive touchdowns, a pick six and a punt return, something like that. And so if that happens to one of them, it likely means the other team is playing from behind, and it increases the likelihood of that defense scoring more points, but the other one less so. So if I was going to be playing double defense, it would be in that type of lineup where I'm putting in a bunch of running backs, a couple kickers, and just thinking it's going to be a 9-6 game.
All right, we've got 1 minute here until the game locks. Before we go, I'll have you give me one under the radar touchdown scorer for tonight. Who you got?
So somewhat under the radar, Brandon Ayuk. Very under the radar, Kyle Juszczyk.
All right, I like the Ayuk call. I will throw Juwan Jennings in there as well as the super under the radar touchdown scorer tonight. And again, it's a little bit ugly out there, but everyone's dealing with the same set of roster constraints. And with that, we are at the lock for the Sunday Night Football. Apologies for the robo mic near the end of the show, but we got her figured out. And we'll be back tomorrow night. I'm not sure who's on tomorrow night for the Monday Night Football build. Let me see if I can check that out real quick and pass that along for those of you who might be tuning in for Monday. We've got our usual MLB schedule. We've got a couple weeks of the about 10 days left of the MLB regular season. So we've got, I am on tomorrow night. Well, there you go. I said I wasn't, but here I am. So we've got Roth, Cheese, and Squirrel Patrol with you on MLB Crunch Time at 6:30, followed by Blender and I at the Monday night pre-lock show for the Giants and the Cowboys tomorrow night. So with that, we'll go ahead and get on out of here. Thanks to TJ for joining me. I am Justin. Thanks to Steve for producing behind the scenes for us as well. We wish you all the best of luck with your Sunday night lineups tonight, and we hope you have a great evening. Take care, everybody.